The Sunday dinner started like all the others, with my father praising my sister Sarah while I sat at the far end of the table, practically invisible. It was March 15, 2024. 3:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was checking my phone hoping for an excuse to leave early. I should have trusted that instinct. My entire extended family had gathered at my parents' house in Westchester. All 23 of them. Aunts, uncles, cousins, grandparents. The dining room was packed, the air thick with the smell of my mother's pot roast and the sound of overlapping conversations. Sarah sat at my father's right hand, her engagement ring catching the light every time she moved. A massive 3-carat diamond that her fiancé Marcus Thornton had given her 6 months ago. Marcus Thornton, whose father happened to be Senator Richard Thornton of New York. My father hadn't stopped talking about it since the engagement. Sarah's marrying into one of the most prominent families in the state, he announced for probably the 15th time that afternoon, his voice carrying over all other conversations. Senator Thornton himself will be at the wedding. Can you imagine? A United States senator at our family wedding. My mother beamed. We're so proud of you, sweetheart. Sarah smiled graciously, playing with her ring. Marcus is wonderful. His whole family is wonderful. I focused on my plate, cutting my pot roast into smaller and smaller pieces. This was my role at family gatherings, to be quiet, to be small, to not draw attention. The wedding is going to be at the Thornton estate, my father continued. 300 guests. The governor might even attend. My cousin Jennifer leaned forward. That's incredible, Sarah. You must be so excited. I am, Sarah said. Then she glanced at me just for a second. Something flickered in her eyes. Pity maybe, or superiority. It's going to be a very exclusive event. Only certain people are invited. My Aunt Linda laughed. Well, of course. You can't invite everyone to a senator's estate. That's when my father set down his fork. The sound of metal hitting china made several people look up. Actually, he said, his voice taking on that serious tone I'd learned to dread, we need to discuss something. The room went quiet. 23 pairs of eyes turned toward the head of the table. My father looked directly at me. Emily, this wedding is extremely important. The Thorntons are, well, they're not like us. They're sophisticated, influential, people who matter. My stomach tightened. I knew where this was going. What your father is trying to say, my mother interjected, her voice gentle but firm, is that we need to make the right impression. Sarah's future depends on it. And frankly, my father said, leaning back in his chair, you would be out of place. The words hung in the air. No one spoke. No one moved. I felt my face flush hot. I'm sorry. You're still renting that tiny apartment in Queens, my father said, his tone matter-of-fact as if he were discussing the weather. You drive a 10-year-old Honda. You work at, what is it you do again? Some hospital job. I'm a doctor, I said quietly. Right, he waved his hand dismissively. But not a successful one. Not like Dr. Patterson's son who has his own practice in Manhattan. You're just working, getting by. Sarah shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Dad. No, she needs to hear this, he interrupted. Emily, your sister is marrying into American royalty. Do you understand what that means? Senator Thornton knows the president. He has dinner with CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. His social circle includes people you see on television. And you think I would embarrass you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Not intentionally, my mother said quickly. But sweetheart, you have to understand. These people will be evaluating everything. How we dress, how we speak, what we do for a living. They'll be judging whether Sarah comes from the right kind of family. My father nodded. Your sister has worked her whole life for this opportunity. She went to Wellesley. She works at a top marketing firm. She's cultured, sophisticated, successful. She's everything the Thorntons expect in a daughter-in-law. The implication was clear. I was none of those things. My Uncle Tom cleared his throat. Harold, that seems a bit harsh. It's reality, Tom, my father snapped. This is Sarah's one chance at a life of significance. I won't let anyone jeopardize that. Not even family. He turned back to me. You understand, don't you, Emily? This isn't personal. It's just practical. I looked around the table. My mother avoided my eyes. Sarah stared at her plate. My grandmother looked uncomfortable but said nothing. My cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone found something else to look at. No one defended me. Not one person. So I'm not invited to my own sister's wedding, I said. It's better this way, my father said. You'd feel out of place anyway. All those successful people, all that wealth and power. You'd be uncomfortable. Plus, Sarah finally spoke up, her voice small. Marcus's family is very particular about the guest list. They want to know everyone who attends. And when they asked about you, I didn't really know what to say. I mean, what do you even do exactly? Something inside me cracked. I'm a pediatric cardiac surgeon. My father frowned. What? I'm a pediatric cardiac surgeon at Mount Sinai, I repeated louder this time. I operate on children's hearts. I save lives. That's what I do. Oh, don't exaggerate, my mother said, laughing nervously. You're a doctor, yes, but I'm the chief of pediatric cardiac surgery, I said, my voice steady now. I've performed over 2,400 successful surgeries. I'm published in the New England Journal of Medicine. I lecture at Columbia. I make $847,000 a year. The room was dead silent. My father stared at me. That's impossible. Why would I lie? Because you've never mentioned any of this, Sarah said, her voice rising. You always say you work at a hospital when we ask. You never said you were some big important surgeon. You never asked, I said simply. You asked what I did and I told you I worked at a hospital. Which is true. You assumed the rest. My father's face was turning red. If you're so successful, why do you live in a tiny apartment? Why do you drive that old car? Because I don't care about impressing people, I said. I live in Queens because it's close to the hospital. I drive an old car because it gets me where I need to go. I spend my money on things that matter. I donate to children's charities, I fund medical research, I pay off my students' loans. I don't believe you, my father said flatly. I reached for my phone, pulled up my hospital ID and slid it across the table. Dr. Emily Chin, Chief of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery. He stared at it. My mother leaned over to look. Sarah grabbed it from his hands, her face going pale. This doesn't change anything, my father said, pushing the phone back toward me. Even if this is true, you've spent years making us think you were nobody. You let us believe you were a failure. What kind of person does that? The kind who wanted to see if her family loved her for who she was, not what she accomplished, I said. That's manipulative, Sarah hissed. No, I said, standing up. What's manipulative is uninviting your sister from your wedding because she doesn't fit your new image. I looked around the table one more time. 23 faces staring back at me. Some shocked, some confused, some angry. Not one looked apologetic. Enjoy the wedding, I said. I hope it's everything you wanted. I walked out of that house at 4:23 p.m. I got in my old Honda and drove back to my apartment in Queens. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt empty. My phone started ringing almost immediately. Then my mother. Then my father. I declined every call. At 11:47 p.m. Sarah sent a text. You're being dramatic. We can talk about this like adults. I blocked her number. The next morning my mother showed up at my apartment. I didn't let her in. Emily, please, she said through the door. Your father didn't mean it the way it sounded. How did he mean it? Silence. That's what I thought, I said. She left. For the next 3 months my family tried various approaches. My father sent an email explaining that he was looking out for Sarah's best interests. My mother left voicemails saying I was breaking her heart. Sarah sent a long text about how I was ruining the happiest time of her life. I deleted everything. At work I threw myself into my cases. There's something clarifying about operating on a 3-year-old's heart. It puts family drama into perspective. Every successful surgery, every child who got to go home healthy, reminded me what actually mattered. My colleagues knew something was wrong, but I didn't elaborate. Dr. Patricia Williams, my mentor and the former chief before me, cornered me one day in the surgeon's lounge. You're working too much, she said. I'm fine. Emily. She sat down across from me. I've known you for 12 years. You're not fine. I told her everything. She listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with each detail. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. I'm sorry, she finally said. That's unconscionable. It is what it is. No, she said firmly. It's not. Your family doesn't deserve you, Emily. You're one of the finest surgeons I've ever worked with. You've saved more children than most doctors will in their entire careers. You're brilliant, compassionate, dedicated. If they can't see that, they're blind. They see what they want to see. Then let them see the truth. She paused. Sarah's wedding is in 2 weeks, right? I'm not going. I'm not suggesting you should. Dr. Williams smiled slightly. But you know how small the medical community is in New York. Word gets around. If someone were to mention your work to the right people. I shook my head. I'm not trying to embarrass them. I'm not talking about embarrassment, she said. I'm talking about truth. You've hidden your light for too long, Emily. Maybe it's time to let it shine. I didn't respond, but her words stayed with me. The wedding was scheduled for Saturday, June 8th, at the Thornton family estate in Greenwich, Connecticut. I knew because my mother had sent me 17 emails about it before I blocked her address too. I worked a double shift that day performing 2 complex surgeries. A 4-year-old with a ventricular septal defect and a 7-year-old with tetralogy of Fallot. Both successful. Both children stable and recovering. I got home at 8:30 p.m., exhausted but satisfied. I ordered takeout, changed into comfortable clothes and settled in to watch a documentary. My phone rang at 9:15 p.m. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello. Dr. Chin. A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes. This is Catherine Thornton. I'm Senator Thornton's wife and Marcus's mother. I sat up straight. Mrs. Thornton. How did you get this number? Your hospital gave me your service and they patched me through. I apologize for calling so late, but this is urgent. She paused. Dr. Chin, I need your help. Is someone hurt? My grandson, my son Jonathan's boy, Charlie. He's 3 years old. He collapsed this afternoon during the rehearsal dinner. We rushed him to Greenwich Hospital. They stabilized him, but the doctors here say he needs immediate surgery. A complex congenital heart defect they didn't catch earlier. My mind shifted immediately into doctor mode. What's his diagnosis? Transposition of the great arteries with a ventricular septal defect. The cardiologist here says it's complicated by, she paused, clearly reading from notes, abnormal coronary artery anatomy. Dr. Chin, they said he needs the best pediatric cardiac surgeon in the tri-state area. When I called Mount Sinai, they said that's you. Where is he now? Still at Greenwich Hospital. But we can have him transported to Mount Sinai within the hour if you can operate. Dr. Chin, please. He's my grandson. He's 3 years old. The doctors here don't think they can handle this surgery. I closed my eyes. A 3-year-old with TGA and VSD with coronary complications. It was exactly the kind of case I specialized in. Complex, high risk, requiring extreme precision. I'll meet you at Mount Sinai, I said. Have them transport him immediately. Tell them to call ahead and ask for my team. I'll be there in 45 minutes. Thank you, she breathed. Thank you so much, Dr. Chin. I hung up and immediately called my surgical team. Then I threw on clothes, grabbed my keys and raced to the hospital. Charlie Thornton arrived at Mount Sinai at 10:38 p.m. I was already scrubbed and reviewing his scans. The coronary anatomy was worse than I'd thought. Both arteries originated from the wrong sinus, which would make the arterial switch operation significantly more complicated. But it was doable. Difficult but doable. Catherine Thornton met me outside the surgical prep area. She was an elegant woman in her 60s, wearing what was clearly an expensive dress from the rehearsal dinner. Her makeup was smudged from crying. Dr. Chin, I can't thank you enough. She stopped mid-sentence, staring at me. I'm sorry, you look familiar. Have we met? I don't think so, I said. She shook her head. I could have sworn. Well, never mind. Please tell me about my grandson. I explained the surgery, the risks, the expected recovery. She listened intently, asking intelligent questions. This was a woman used to making important decisions. How long will it take? She asked. 4 to 6 hours. It's delicate work. But you can do it. It wasn't a question. But I answered anyway. I've done this operation 127 times. I haven't lost a patient yet. He squeezed my hand. Then I trust you completely. The surgery began at 11:42 p.m. My team was phenomenal. Dr. Ranjit Patel on anesthesia, Dr. Amanda Foster assisting, Nurse Margaret O'Brien running the OR like a well-oiled machine. The arterial switch went smoothly despite the unusual coronary anatomy. I carefully detached the great arteries, switched them and reconnected them to their proper ventricles. Then I repaired the VSD and reimplanted the coronary arteries in their correct positions. Every stitch had to be perfect. One mistake and this child could die on my table. At 4:17 a.m., I placed the final suture. Closing, I announced. By 5:30 a.m., Charlie was stable and being moved to pediatric cardiac ICU. I found Catherine Thornton in the waiting room, along with Senator Thornton himself and their son Jonathan, Charlie's father. All three looked exhausted and terrified. "He's going to be fine," I said immediately. Catherine burst into tears. Jonathan grabbed his father's shoulder, his own eyes filling. Senator Thornton, a man I'd seen on television countless times, always poised and commanding, looked like he might collapse from relief. "The surgery was successful," I continued. "His heart is functioning normally. Barring any complications, he should make a full recovery." "Can we see him?" Catherine asked. "Soon. He's still unconscious, but you can sit with him in the ICU. A nurse will take you up." "Dr. Chin," Senator Thornton said, his voice rough with emotion. "You saved my grandson's life. I don't know how to thank you." "No thanks necessary, Senator. It's my job." "No," he said firmly. "This was more than a job. You left whatever you were doing on a Saturday night, came in on your day off and spent 6 hours saving a child you'd never met. That's not just a job. That's a calling." I smiled slightly. "I love what I do." Catherine took my hands. "You must come to the wedding today. Please. I insist." I froze. "The wedding? My son Marcus is getting married this afternoon at our estate," she said. "It's the least we can do after what you've done for us. Please say you'll come. I'd be honored to have you there." "I really don't think." "Please," Senator Thornton added. "It would mean a great deal to us." I thought about saying no. I thought about going home, getting some sleep, forgetting any of this had happened. But something in me, something tired of hiding, tired of being invisible, tired of being called worthless, said yes. "What time?" I asked. "The ceremony is at 4 o'clock. But there's a rehearsal dinner at noon that we had to postpone because of Charlie. We're doing it this morning instead, a brunch at 10 o'clock. You're welcome to both, of course." "I'll try to make it," I said. I went home, showered and changed into the one nice dress I owned, a simple navy sheath I'd bought for medical conferences. Not fancy but appropriate. I did my makeup carefully, pulled my hair into a neat bun and drove to Greenwich. The Thornton estate was exactly as impressive as I'd imagined. A massive colonial-style mansion on 20 acres of perfectly manicured grounds. A white tent had been set up on the lawn for the ceremony, and I could see workers rushing around making final preparations. I arrived at the rehearsal brunch at 10:47 a.m. A valet took my car. A staff member directed me to the terrace where brunch was being served. And there, sitting at a long table, was my entire family. My mother saw me first. Her mouth fell open. My father turned, following her gaze, and went completely still. Sarah, sitting next to Marcus Thornton, looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Emily," my mother whispered. Before I could respond, Catherine Thornton swept over with Senator Thornton beside her. Everyone," she called out, getting the attention of all 50 or so guests. "I want to introduce someone very special. This is Dr. Emily Chin, the surgeon who saved our grandson Charlie's life last night." The entire terrace erupted in applause. I stood there, frozen, as Catherine pulled me toward the table. Dr. Chin performed emergency surgery at 2 in the morning and spent 6 hours saving Charlie. He's going to make a full recovery thanks to her. Senator Thornton raised his glass. "To Dr. Chin, one of the finest surgeons in the country and a remarkable human being." "To Dr. Chin," everyone chorused. My father's face had gone from pale to bright red. My mother looked like she might faint. Sarah was gripping Marcus's arms so hard her knuckles were white. "Please sit with us," Catherine said, guiding me to the head table, right next to where my parents were sitting. I sat down. My father opened his mouth, then closed it. Then opened it again. "Emily," he finally managed. "What are you doing here?" Mrs. Thornton invited me, I said calmly. But how do you know the Thorntons? I told you, Catherine said, overhearing. She saved Charlie's life. My grandson had emergency heart surgery last night. Dr. Chin is the chief of pediatric cardiac surgery at Mount Sinai. My mother made a small choking sound. Marcus turned to Sarah. Your sister is Dr. Emily Chin? The Dr. Emily Chin. Sarah nodded mutely. Honey, Marcus said, his voice confused. Why didn't you mention your sister is one of the most renowned pediatric cardiac surgeons in New York? My father's been trying to get a meeting with her for months. She's advised on healthcare policy, she's revolutionized surgical techniques. I didn't know, Sarah whispered. How could you not know your own sister is famous? Marcus asked. I'm not famous, I interjected quietly. I'm just good at my job. Just good. Senator Thornton laughed. Dr. Chin, you're being modest. I've read your papers on minimally invasive cardiac surgery in infants. Groundbreaking work. The medical community considers you one of the leading experts in the field. My father was staring at me like he'd never seen me before. I tried to tell you, I said to him. At dinner. 3 months ago. You didn't believe me. You said you were a surgeon, he said weakly. You didn't say you were. This. You didn't ask. Jonathan Thornton, Charlie's father, came over then with his phone. Dr. Chin, I just texted my wife a photo of you. She wants to thank you personally when she wakes up. She's been sitting with Charlie all night. No need, I said. I'm just glad he's doing well. Charlie's alive because of you, Jonathan said, his voice thick. My son gets to grow up because you were willing to drop everything on a Saturday night. Our family owes you a debt we can never repay. He pulled me into a tight hug. Over his shoulder I could see my family watching. My mother's eyes were filled with tears. My father looked like he'd been punched in the stomach. Sarah was whispering urgently to Marcus. The brunch continued. I tried to eat, but people kept coming up to thank me, to ask about my work, to tell me about their own family members with heart conditions. Catherine introduced me to what felt like every guest, each time repeating the story of Charlie's surgery. My family said nothing. They sat there watching as the Thorntons and their guests treated me like an honored hero. At one point my father tried to approach me. Emily, we need to talk. Not now, I said quietly. But. Not now, Dad. He retreated. The wedding ceremony at 4 o'clock was beautiful. Marcus and Sarah exchanged vows under the white tent while 300 guests watched. Sarah looked stunning in her Vera Wang gown. Marcus looked happy. I sat in the 5th row, next to a state assemblyman and a federal judge. My family sat in the 2nd row, but I could feel them glancing back at me throughout the ceremony. At the reception, Catherine insisted I sit at the family table. You saved Charlie's life, she said. Your family now. So I sat at the head table next to Senator Thornton, while my parents and extended family sat at table 7. During dinner the senator leaned over. I have to ask, Dr. Chin. Your family seems surprised by your presence. We're not very close, I said carefully. He studied me for a moment. I see. Well, their loss is our gain. I meant what I said about wanting to meet with you. I'm working on healthcare legislation, specifically regarding pediatric cardiac care accessibility. I'd love your input. I'd be happy to help, Senator. Please call me Richard. At 8:30 p.m., as the reception was in full swing, my mother finally cornered me near the dessert table. Emily, please. We need to talk. About what? About everything. About what your father said. About the wedding. About, she gestured helplessly. All of this. What do you want me to say, Mom? I want you to forgive us, she said, tears running down her face. We made a terrible mistake. We didn't know. You didn't want to know, I interrupted. I tried to tell you. At that dinner. I told you I was a cardiac surgeon. Dad said I was exaggerating. You laughed. We didn't understand. You didn't care to understand. I wasn't good enough for Sarah's wedding because I didn't fit your image. Because I drove an old car and lived in Queens. You judged me based on appearances, not on who I actually am. We're sorry, she sobbed. Are you sorry for what you did? Or are you sorry that you were wrong? She didn't answer. That's what I thought, I said. My father appeared then, his face drawn. Emily, your mother's right. We made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But you have to understand. I don't have to understand anything, I said. You called me worthless. In front of the entire family. You said I would embarrass Sarah. You uninvited me from my own sister's wedding because you were ashamed of me. We didn't know you were successful, he said desperately. Would it have mattered if I wasn't? I asked. If I was just a regular doctor making a regular salary living a regular life, would that make me worthless? Would that justify excluding me? He opened his mouth but no words came out. You taught me that my value as a person depends on what I achieve, how much money I make, who I know. You taught me that love is conditional. That family is conditional. I paused. Well, congratulations. I learned the lesson. Emily, please. I need to go, I said. I have a patient to check on. I walked away from them through the reception, past the dancing guests and the elaborate flower arrangements and the ice sculpture in the shape of two swans. I found Catherine and thanked her for her hospitality. I congratulated Marcus and Sarah, who barely managed to speak to me. And then I left. I drove back to Mount Sinai and checked on Charlie. He was awake, groggy but stable. His parents were there, exhausted but grateful. How are you feeling, buddy? I asked Charlie. He gave me a weak thumbs up. You're a tough kid, I said. You're going to be just fine. His mother, Amanda, took my hand. Thank you, Dr. Chen. Thank you for giving me back my son. You're welcome. That's the thing about my job. At the end of the day, I know I've made a difference. A real, tangible difference in the world. I save lives. I give parents their children back. I give children their futures back. My family could never understand that because they measure success in dollar signs and social status and appearances. They didn't see my value because I didn't advertise it. I didn't wear expensive clothes or drive a luxury car or name drop at parties. I just did my job. I saved lives. And that was enough for me. Over the next week, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My father called 47 times. My mother called 53 times. Sarah called 31 times. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins called another 60+ times combined. I didn't answer. They sent emails, text messages, even letters delivered to my apartment building. All saying the same thing: we're sorry. We made a mistake. Please forgive us. Please come back to the family. Some were genuine. My grandmother's letter was heartfelt and apologetic. Uncle Tom's email was thoughtful and acknowledged their failure. But most were about what I could do for them now. My cousin Jennifer wanted me to look at her daughter's medical records. Aunt Linda asked if I could get her husband into a clinical trial. My father sent an email about how having a famous surgeon in the family would be wonderful for their social standing. Even Sarah sent a long text about how Marcus's family kept asking about me and could I please attend some dinner parties with them. They still didn't get it. 3 weeks after the wedding, Catherine Thornton invited me to her home for lunch. Just the two of us. I wanted to apologize, she said over salmon and asparagus, for putting you in that position at the wedding. I didn't know about your family situation. You have nothing to apologize for, I said. You invited me because I helped Charlie. That's all. Still, she said, it was clearly uncomfortable for you. I saw your family's reaction. The shock on their faces. She paused. They didn't know, did they? About your career. They knew I was a doctor. They just assumed I wasn't successful. Why did you let them think that? I considered the question. Because I wanted to know if they'd love me anyway. If I was enough just being me without the title or the salary or the prestige. I smiled sadly. Turns out I wasn't. Catherine reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Their loss, Emily. Truly. We talked for 2 hours. About medicine, about family, about the pressures of expectations. Catherine was warm, intelligent, insightful. By the time I left, I felt like I'd made a real friend. That friendship grew over the following months. Catherine invited me to charity events, dinner parties, cultural outings. She introduced me to people who became genuine friends. People who valued me for who I was, not what I could do for them. Senator Thornton did invite me to consult on his healthcare legislation. I spent hours working with his policy team, providing medical expertise on pediatric cardiac care accessibility. The work was fulfilling and important. Charlie recovered beautifully. I saw him for follow-up appointments every few weeks, watching him grow stronger and healthier. His parents sent me photos of him running, playing, living the life he might not have had without that surgery. My family kept trying. 6 months after the wedding, my mother showed up at the hospital. Security called me. "Dr. Chen, there's a Patricia Chen here to see you. She says she's your mother. Tell her I'm in surgery. Will you be available later?" No. At Christmas they sent an enormous gift basket to my apartment. Expensive chocolates, wine, gourmet foods. A card signed by everyone. "We miss you. Please come home." I donated it to a homeless shelter. On my birthday in February, my entire family showed up at a restaurant where they'd somehow discovered I'd made a reservation with friends. All 23 of them crowding around our table making a scene. "Surprise!" my mother shouted. "We wanted to celebrate with you." My friends looked uncomfortable. I stood up, placed money on the table to cover my meal and said, "We're leaving." "Emily, wait," my father started. "No," I said firmly. "I'm here with my real family. Please leave." "We are your real family," Sarah protested. I looked at her. Really looked at her. She'd lost weight. Her eyes had dark circles. She looked stressed and unhappy despite her fairy tale life with Marcus. "You're people I'm related to by blood," I said. "But you're not my family. Family doesn't call each other worthless. Family doesn't exclude each other out of shame. Family doesn't measure each other's value by their bank account or their job title." "We were wrong," my father said. "We know that now. We're sorry." "You're sorry you were wrong," I corrected. "You're not sorry for how you treated me. You're sorry I turned out to be someone important, someone who could have helped your social standing. If I had been just a regular doctor, you'd still think you were justified." The restaurant had gone quiet. Everyone was watching. "Please," my mother begged. "We're family. We can work through this." "No," I said. "We can't. Because working through it would require you to fundamentally change how you view people, how you measure worth, how you define success. And I don't think you're capable of that." I walked out with my friends. My family didn't follow. A year after the wedding, I received a letter from Sarah. It was different from the others. No pleading, no excuses, no requests for forgiveness. Just honesty. She wrote about how she'd built her entire life around seeking our parents' approval. How she'd chosen her career, her friends, her husband based on what would impress them. How she'd been so focused on appearing successful that she'd never stopped to consider what actually made her happy. She wrote about how seeing me at her wedding had shattered her worldview. How I'd achieved genuine success, the kind that mattered, the kind that saved lives, while she'd been chasing shadows of approval. She wrote that she was in therapy, that she was starting to understand how toxic our family dynamics were, that she was trying to build a real relationship with Marcus, one based on love rather than status. She wrote that she didn't expect forgiveness, that she didn't deserve it, but that she wanted me to know she was truly, genuinely sorry for who she'd been and what she'd done. I read the letter 3 times. Then I wrote back. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But acknowledgement. An opening. A possibility. We started exchanging emails. Short ones at first. About books, about weather, about nothing important. Gradually we began sharing more. She talked about her struggles with our parents' expectations. I talked about my work, my life, my found family. It was slow. Like learning to walk on ice. But it was something. My parents, on the other hand, I kept at a distance. They sent cards on holidays. I didn't respond. They showed up at medical conferences where I was speaking. I had security escort them out. They tried to reach me through colleagues, through friends, through anyone who might have a connection. I remained firm. 2 years after that Sunday dinner, I received the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American Pediatric Cardiac Surgery Association. At 37 years old, I was the youngest recipient in the organization's history. The ceremony was at the Waldorf Astoria in New York. Over 800 attendees. Surgeons, researchers, healthcare administrators from around the world. Catherine and Richard Thornton attended. Charlie, now 5 years old and thriving, presented me with the award. Amanda and Jonathan stood nearby, beaming. My acceptance speech was short. I thanked my mentors, my team, my patients and their families. I talked about the privilege of being entrusted with children's lives, the responsibility we carry as physicians, the importance of compassionate care. I didn't mention my family. I didn't need to. But they were there. In the back row. All of them. Watching. After the ceremony, as I stood accepting congratulations and taking photos, my father approached. "Emily," he said quietly. "That was a beautiful speech. Thank you. I'm proud of you." I looked at him. Really looked at him. He'd aged in 2 years. More gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes. He looked smaller somehow. Less imposing. "Are you proud of what I've accomplished?" I asked. "Or are you proud of who I am?" He hesitated. And in that hesitation I had my answer. "I thought so," I said. "Emily, please. I'm trying." "I know you are," I said. And I meant it. "But trying isn't the same as understanding. You're proud of Dr. Emily Chin, the award winner, the famous surgeon, the person who knows senators. You're not proud of Emily, your daughter, who was always worthy of love regardless of her achievements." "I do love you," he said, his voice breaking. "Maybe," I said. "In your way. But it's not enough. Not anymore." I walked away. Sarah caught me at the elevator. We'd been emailing regularly by then, meeting occasionally for coffee. Our relationship was still fragile, still rebuilding, but it was real. "Congratulations," she said, hugging me. "You deserve this." "Thank you." "I told Marcus I'd only come if I could sit apart from Mom and Dad," she said. "I needed to be here for you, not for them. That meant more to me than the award." "I'm glad you came," I said. We rode the elevator down together, talking about her new job. She'd quit the marketing firm and started working for a nonprofit. The pay was less, but she seemed happier. Outside, Catherine and Richard were waiting with Charlie. "Dr. Chin," Charlie shouted, running over. He was healthy, energetic, a normal 5-year-old with a bright future. "Hey buddy," I said, scooping him up. "Did you like the party?" "The cake was good," he said seriously. "Can I have another piece?" Everyone laughed. That night I went home to my apartment in Queens. The same apartment I'd lived in for years. I'd thought about moving, about getting something bigger, fancier. But I liked it here. It was close to the hospital. It was home. I changed into comfortable clothes, made tea, and sat by the window looking out at the city. My phone buzzed. A text from Dr. Williams. "Congratulations, Dr. Chin. Well deserved. See you Monday for that HLGS case. Cheese. Hypoplastic left heart syndrome. A complex 3-stage surgery performed over the course of years. The family had specifically requested me." I texted back, "Wouldn't miss it. That's the thing about my life now. It's full. Not with people who claim to love me because of what I've achieved, but with people who value me for who I am. My colleagues who respect my skill but also know I ugly cry at sad movies. My friends who call me at 2 a.m. when they need someone to talk to. My patients' families who trust me with their most precious treasures. Sarah, slowly becoming a real sister rather than a competitor. Catherine, who became the mother figure I'd always needed. Charlie, who reminded me why I do what I do. This is my family now. Family I chose. Family that chose me back. As for my parents, they still try. Cards on birthdays. Invitations to dinner. Requests to talk things through. I don't hate them. I don't even resent them anymore. I've simply accepted that they are who they are and I am who I am, and sometimes those two things don't align. Maybe someday we'll rebuild something. Maybe we won't. But I'm okay either way. Because I finally learned the lesson they tried to teach me, just not in the way they intended. My worth doesn't depend on their approval. It never did. I'm Dr. Emily Chin. I save children's lives. I advance medical science. I make a difference in the world. And that's enough. That's more than enough.